Yeah, 45.
Yes.
Yeah. So right on time there. So yeah, you like containers?
Of course. Let's say it's like it depends, but there's definitely places where I think it's they're very well suited and very practical to have. But I also had I had sometimes real troubles with containers, so I think it's a double-edged sword.
So when it comes to PIP, virtual environments, Conda, easy build, so this is another way to get your software, but it's very so in my opinion, so these are opinions, right? So it's not hard facts. It is very important. You don't take it as a religion. You don't stick, I'm a Conda person, I'm going to use Conda for everything. I'm an easy build person, I'm easy build. Okay, containers are very easy. There are containers is the future. Don't get into those sort of mindsets that you're not open for to explore other things. So you have to find out what you want from this and select the correct way. One way that you will find out that containers is the thing is that you go to some course or you have some software that you want to use, and you find things like apt-get installed, apt-get update, system level updates, and there are some software that is made that will only work on, for example, in certain operating systems.
Maybe to mention for the people who don't know, apt is like the system package manager of Ubuntu and Debian. So it's not available on our systems, and even if it would be, it's only for admins and not regular users.
Not regular users. So if your instructions contain something like this, install and sudo in the front, if you have anything sudo, that means it's time that you should investigate the possibility of a container. So in order to
or check if it's already available. Like in this case, I saw it was like NCBI Blast, and Blast is already, you don't have to install it like this apt, you can use easy config, easy build. But if it's like something complicated and contains apt or something.
Very good point. And you should check first that is there already. Unless it's there, you can go and install it. So I'm going to, from the first course page, I'm going to go for I'm going to close this R section and go for Singularity. I will introduce some concepts, and then Jørn will show us a joke. So these are discussion points. There are opinions in the beginning of this lesson than scientific facts. So we could have this in the HackMD if you have different opinions. So we can include this in the course page later on. So here, what we're going to show in this documentation page is how to use a container, not how to create one. So that is not part of this. So if you have got a container from somebody, or you have created a container on your laptop or your personal laptop where you have privileges, and you bring it in, and how to run this. So if you have some apt-get install, yum install, or something that's required by a software, then it's time to think of it. And if you have a software that is very old or very, very new, that's not available in other methods, and the developer distributes the container image, then that's another example. And dependencies. So if you have some software that is dependent on very specific version of some software that is hard to come by other methods, maybe it's easier to use the container. And also vendor locking, I would say. Like, there are some vendors, they make their like libraries and the APIs very hard to install, but they package it in a container and distribute it. So in that case, maybe it's easier to use a container as well. When not to use containers, so the containers rely on a system kernel. That means your container will have your own operating system and everything in it, but it will rely on the basic system underneath, what we call the kernel. That means a Windows container will not run on our system. So if you have like Windows software some visual basic or something, then and your intention is to run it on Saga, that will not work. And then you found a command on the internet, and you're going to like reproduce it on our system, that you have no idea what the container is doing. You just, because the basic thing is, if you are blindly copy pasting something, then that is not a example of using a container. You should understand what it does before you use it. And as Jørn said in the beginning, if it's already there, try to use it. Don't try to install it again as a container. But if you already there on the system, it is optimized for our systems, and try to use it. All right, then we'll see the Singularity. So I'm going to use the system install Singularity. We also have a module. Let's see module list. Do you have anything loaded? So I have this old loaded modules here. So I'm going to get out of Saga and have a new terminal. That way it's better. I'm going to ask Singularity version. It's a little old version, I see, but if you're a new version, there's also a module.
So I don't even have to use load a module. Like everything else, we have to load modules like Conda, pip, or whatever.
Yes.
Singularity is just available. Is it
It's
available on all systems or just on Saga?
That I have to check before answering. Probably yes. Yes.
I think so too.
Yeah. And then because in the beginning of the lesson I said this is not a lesson that we teach how to like create containers. So these are the places that we have mentioned here that containers can be acquired if you before you run it. So it's the Docker Hub is the main place at the moment, and the vendors like NVIDIA, they have their own containers, and also Singularity Hub, and these things are sort of deprecated now. These are write protected states, so these are not that active. Then other like bio containers, for example, you'll find a lot of bioinformatics containers, and also software developers. The thing, Jørn, with Singularity is you can use containers from any of these sources with Singularity. So then in order to use Singularity in image, we need to get that image downloaded to our Saga first. So how do you usually download things, Jørn?
Maybe Singularity, or like in general?
In general, how do you get things down to Saga?
No, we discussed in the last course, so I would usually use wget, or depends if it's on GitHub or GitLab, then I would use git clone, and I have to have git link multiple files. But the easiest usually is like wget or curl.
Yeah. So with Singularity, we could use the command Singularity pool. So what will this is, it will pull, this one will pull from the Singularity Hub, this image called Hello World. So we'll see how you found the Hello World is to go to this Singularity Hub. For example, let's say I'll go to Docker Hub, because that will be the example that might use later. You go here, it's loading, and then if you know where to exactly click, you'll click it. Otherwise, you can search. Is there anything that we could find? Let's say Blast was the one we are talking mostly. Biocontainers Blast. So this is a container with the software called Blast that's used in bioinformatics, and they'll say they'll say how to get it. Pool biocontainer. If you see this command, so this is where we got this command from. So we searched that for the Hello World container, and we found out this is the URL to use. Then you will give because it will download a binary into the folder.
And I just could I also just copy the command from the website you just showed? There was a copy option. Would this work?
Good question, Jørn. So where is that? biocontainers. So you could use that, but I will tell you in a moment how you do that, because the copy paste will not directly work, because this is for Docker. But if you change this Docker to Singularity, it will work.
I think maybe you should mention, like on HPC system, usually Docker is not available. This has to do with like admin rights and stuff, but like usually Singularity can often be used as a drop-in instead of Docker. They are very similar.
Correct. Yes. So these are different technologies to use containers, and Singularity is more suited for a HPC system. I'm going to paste that command, Singularity pool, with a name, and it's pulling from that URL. And the way I found the URL was this from the website. And then if I check, I have this hello world downloaded. But you can't just run it. You have to ask Singularity to execute it. So if it is from like a different cloud, for example, Docker, then you would say instead of this command you used here, instead of this part of the command, you have to say it's from the Docker hub. So that is the difference. So if you're getting that, if you're going to copy paste that command, so we'll check that as well. And then before Jørn try to show this on a job command, I will try to explain the difference between the two ways of executing the containers. So this, so there are two sort of arguments that we can use. One is exec and one is run. So there's a difference between this. So it's good to understand before we jump to our job. So then we have pulled it, and then I'm going to use the exec to command. So exec runs a specific command inside a container. So let's try that. Singularity exec. It's okay to like try these things if you have the chance. So it's okay to type it if there's nothing dangerous going to happen now. So you have this one, and then I know that there's a file called singularity inside this. So singularity.
Tab, so like auto completion probably doesn't work if it's inside the container.
Good point. So this file is inside the container. So I'm going to ask that, and it prints. So there's a file. Yes, it's an executable, and it executes a file called another file. So it points to another file. Okay, let's see that file, what that is. So now I'm investigating things inside the container. So these files are not on my computer. Okay, let's make sure that it's not RAW. Okay, let's copy paste that to make sure exactly the same. So this is my computer. Right. So there's no file.
I mean, your computer, you mean now Saga?
Yeah, Saga is like my computer when I'm working on it. So.
But
yes. Okay.
Just to make it clear that there's two different versions now.
Good point. Good point, Jørn. So when you're in Saga, make sure that you don't disturb others. So it's having it in mind that it's a shared resource. It's a very good point, and it's a good point that you made it. So here it prints things. So let's say we want to run this file. Then what we do is, so you have this file hello world sif. So I'm going to remove these things in the front, and I'm going to use the command run instead, and it will actually run. So it ran that file inside. So this is like a difference that you should keep in mind when you sort of work, how to execute the default command in the container, and to execute your own commands inside the container. So that's
when do you use run, for example?
So run is the normal one we sort of use, because the container distributor would make sure when you run something, when you call the run container, there's something default that will execute. So you have to, that is configured already.
Yeah, so it could be, for example, like you mentioned the BLAST container earlier, which is a bioinformatics tool, and it could be that like if you just like run, that it will just like use the typical. Okay, that's actually not easy to say, but like the standard BLAST or whatever.
Yes.
Or start a pipeline or something. But it's usually described, like where you find the container, there should also be a README file describing what run does and how to put inputs and outputs and stuff.
Correct. So there's a description, and also a pipeline. What you mentioned is very important. The pipelines are places that containers must be useful, because there are a lot of things you can sort of set up inside, so it's easy to distribute. So this is like an example use case of those that things we talk about. It goes through some examples to show how do you do something very specific. So then we'll see again here, this is Docker. So let's say TensorFlow in Docker. I'll show one example just to make sure, you know, it's if there's any problems that comes up that we can sort of discuss that as well. So I found this TensorFlow. We have the default TensorFlow. So here we are using TensorFlow. Where's the TensorFlow channel? Architectures, images. I'm trying to find out the.
I mean, you can copy also. You can use a link,
like this?
the URL.
Like this?
Yeah. I think that.
Okay. So I found
actually, so for me, the biggest problem with finding containers is often you find. I mean, this one is like updated 18 hours ago, though it seems to be like, yeah, okay, it's an official. But sometimes you find like super outdated. So really try to find like check different locations and see if it's like up to date and properly maintained.
Yes, properly maintained, updated is a good thing to check. That's why there's a prerequisite for using containers. It's not just copy pasting, you should have some understanding. I'm going to copy paste this Jørn here. Docker command not found. So how do we adopt it to use it in our system? We have to use singularity and then pool. And then I have to give the URL I copied from the URL from the
because it's on Docker Hub now. You have to use Docker :/ I think.
Here I will copy that exactly like this. And what do you say, Jørn? Colon?
No. Docker :: So one backspace.
Colon and //
// yeah, /
like this?
twice.
Yeah.
Oh, once.
Like,
no, twice. Yeah.
Twice. Okay. And maybe I can give a name to this as well. Maybe. Oh, let's see what happens if I don't give a name. It will sort of figure out a name for itself. So earlier I gave a name, but now it has TensorFlow here. And see, now I'm going to use this Python command. So now this is Python. And I will see whether there's any Python installed, not Python, TensorFlow installed on the system by default, or in my folder. So TensorFlow is a machine learning library that we use. Now I'm going to, instead of running it on my computer, I'm going to run it using the container. So the same command, but in front you need singularity, and then what? Run. And then TensorFlow.
No, is it run or is it execute in this case? Because you know that you will use Python.
Very good point. Now in this case, the TensorFlow module, they have made sure that the run will call default. By default, it will do what we want. So now it sees that it just went and analyzed some things, and it printed the TensorFlow version. So when you find out the container, you have to adopt it to singularity. Nothing else much to do, but you have to know how to call it, and most of the examples how to do it we have given here. If you find more other examples, please send us so we can include it in this material.
Something I would, you downloaded this and it was saved as TensorFlow latest, which is not a great name. I mean, it's latest means it's the newest version available, but this doesn't specify which version. And you, of course, you can go into the container, check it out, but it might be better to give it the name, the actual like version number. That's like.
Yes, so that is the important. Yeah, that is the important of specifying a name. So when you download it, you can specify a name, so it will use that name instead. Also, you can rename it. So these are self-contained binaries. So you can move it, rename it, take it somewhere else. You can download it on your laptop and bring it to Saga.
Yeah, I mean, this is
movable.
This is a big advantage of containers. You can try them out on your computer. You can build them on your computer or try them and then move them to Saga, and they should work. Actually, there's a question that like sometimes Docker containers, like porting to Singularity, doesn't really work that well because of local database and stuff. And this can happen. It doesn't work on all the cases, but many containers work just like out of the box. Docker containers work on Singularity.
Oh, true. There could be issues. We have selected some ideal case here. When using containers, there could be multiple issues that might to face, but we have to take case by case. And most of the time, there's a solution for those things. Another thing they are showing here is to see the operating system. So I'm going to say Singularity. Now I renamed it. I have to make sure that I use the correct name. Let's see. OS release. So sorry, it was too fast. I use this command. Where is that? OS release here, and it printed Ubuntu. But if I do that on Saga.
So etc OS release is just like tells you a lot of info about the operating system. And this way we can see that Saga has, for example, here CentOS Linux as an operating system, while the container uses Debian Ubuntu 24.
Yeah.
So you see this is like, even though both of the, like, you run it on Saga, the container contains its own Linux version.
And there are other examples given here that I'm not going to talk much. So maybe you could show
but I think it might actually be easier if you just continue. We only have like 5 minutes or a bit more left. So maybe just type.
No, we have 22 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, should we have a Q&A at the end?
You have 20 more minutes. Jørn. Usually we don't get that much question at the end of the day, so it's better that you continue.
Okay.
Yes, so until Jørn share that. Okay.
So so we continue on this side. So what would you say is, like, if you now want to you downloaded a container, you tried it out, it seems to work, and now you want to use it in a real life scenario. I mean, maybe first like in an interactive job to just like see if everything works, but then you put it in a job script. Is there much you have to take care of, or like you be aware of, or is it relatively simple? What would you say?
So if you rephrase that, I didn't properly get the question. Yeah.
Do you think it's like, is it difficult to use Singularity in JavaScript?
If you know how to use it, no, not difficult. But if you are copying a random command from the internet, it might not work, or maybe it work. But it's very, very advantageous if you understand what it's supposed to do and how it works.
Yeah, so I would say like so try like pull again. You have to pull from the login nodes anyway, I think. like the compute nodes have very limited internet access. So pull, so like, for example, I think I haven't done this, and I will use the same hello world script. So I'm also on, nope, this is the wrong file. Okay, it does already exist. No, too much stuff in my folder, because I'm doing it in my home folder, which is also maybe not the smartest idea. But there's Singularity, it can run yeah, and it works. It outputs, echoes what I expected to echo. So I have now a running Singularity container. And if this would be like a bigger job, like a pipeline or something, maybe the first time you want to do it interactively to actually see like if everything works, and then you could like, I would assume, like say, like, do it in an interactive job. Don't do it on the login nodes, the download, yes, but like actually running, do it in an interactive job. If you don't know what this is, yeah, look for interactive web job. This basically gives you like a compute node to run stuff on, but so you're not on the login node, but you still have like your normal command line interface, and you can start commands and see the output immediately. You don't have to wait for it. You only have to wait to get the node maybe in the beginning. Okay, so now we know this is this Singularity container is working, and now we want to make a job script. So I will just copy this one. So now we see like this is a job script. So it contains like the shebang with bash, and then the account. What was our kind of project? No. Can you help me? Is it project?
Yeah.
Then
No,
it forget. Yeah. So
yeah.
account, you don't need project underscore,
Project.
just.
Yeah, Singularity test. One node is enough. One task is enough in this case. It's a small 3 minutes. We could use the job reservation. Do we? Should we?
We do, but for this we don't. I don't remember the exact string to use that. So it works.
So it's a reservation.
If you want, it's reservation best practices.
Okay, let's see. Let's add this. Oops. There's nothing more irritating than having like dozens of people watch you type. Yeah, okay, so here. Yeah, okay. And what was it?
NRIS underscore capital NRIS underscore best underscore practices. Oh no, all the small letters best. Yeah. So, yeah.
So okay. So yeah, what our job script does here, it just makes a new line, and then this is like what we just did. It will output the this OS release file.
Yeah. Just
First,
a moment. You have a spell mistake. Practices. It's a C.
Practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, spelling. So it will output this file not being inside the container so far, and then it will, because Singularity is just available, we don't have to load a module or something. We can use Singularity, like execute the same command, but now inside the container. So it shouldn't take long to run this as batch. Singularity. Actually, I want to try this now. Okay, it's already done or it failed. This -I refreshes it every 2 seconds. So let's see.
Maybe there's a log file.
Yeah, I'm also. Yeah, it should be the right. Yeah, so it worked. So it started the job. Here then it printed our line, what is the operating system on the host. It tells us like it's CentOS, which we expect for Saga. Also says, doesn't it say Saga? No, it doesn't. And then here inside the container, it's Ubuntu. And then becomes the typical Slurm output. Okay, so this worked. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, something which you might want to do. Do you think there's more to add about like a singularity in job scripts?
Yes, I could maybe shortly show how to access file. Do you want to show it or can I show it?
Oh, I can also show it. Like because currently what we've done is we can access from inside the container. We can access files which are on Saga as well. I mean, this is important because usually you want to have some input files. So let's no, not exit. What do you have to do to get a shell? This is a shell, isn't it?
Yeah, it's better. Like, yeah, good. Then you have to start it interactively. So we are not going to sort of show that now.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could do the exec and can you show me where you are now? PWD.
Oh yeah, that's Okay. So yeah, because I can also print, for example, like I'm inside the container and still I get the files which are in my home directory. So, but now let's assume I want to access files which are maybe in my cluster projects NM9984. Okay, let's see what's in this folder, and then I get I cannot access. So why does this happen? Why can I access my home, but I can't access a project? Because if I do the same command without the container, it works. Can you explain, like, tell me what's happening here?
So the container runs its own operating system, and when it loads, it has mounted, if we call it like mounting, the home directory. So the home directory has access. If you do instead of the ls, if you do something like df -h, it will show you that df -h. So these are the things the container could actually see. So this is different than what you would see from your machine. So this is also very important for security reasons. Not everything mounted, not everything is accessible unless you explicitly ask it. So if you want to use that place, you have to use a command called bind, an argument called bind to tell singularity. So this you should also access a particular location. So that command is there in the tutorial. If you go further down.
Let's say like I want to get clusters, projects, and okay, so now it doesn't work. So now we have to make this accessible. And let's see in the documentation how to do that. Here, for example, the project area. It could also be other areas. It could also be the work area. It doesn't have to be just project area. You can bind different folders which are not automatically binded, like your home folder. And
you could use the whatever you use now, like you don't use the head, you can use ls, that's okay. So what bind is doing is it's taking a place on your, linking a place on your Saga to a place inside the container.
So let's say I want to this actually, but then cluster projects and 9984. Okay, I could do this, I think, and it should work.
I don't know how that will, but you could try. Yes, but
It will work.
Try that, yes.
Because if you just specify a folder, it will be bound inside the container with the exactly same file path. So this subfolder will be available, but if I, for example, look into another folder which I know I have access rights to, it doesn't work because only this subfolder is bound. But sometimes, like instead of like having these long file names, you can also want to rebind it to another like name. So I'm confused. So maybe I just want to bind this as /data because my input data is in this folder. But this will
And just try now.
Yeah.
You could try it again.
Yeah, that's true. I can show you what happens. Or actually, so it won't work because this folder is now not available under this name. But I bound it now. It's a bit like long file like names here, but I bound it as like /data. So this one should be available. So let's try. Yeah, and that works. And I think subfolders should also be work. Yeah, for example, this is my Conda environment. So with that way, you can either like bind it under a different name, or if you remove that last part and only use the front part, it's bound under the same name, and then it's accessible from inside the container. Okay.
So now what we can do is, so HackMD admins, do you see anything that we should take up?
Here I see. Oh, sorry, I see. Just like the last one, does it bind recursively? What if you want to bind several directories? You can do that. You can either specify bind multiple times, or you use, is it colons? I think it's
I
semicolons.
use multiple times, but there could be a better way. So
I think you can
bind
use
multiple things.
I think you can. I forgot. I think it's colons or commas or something. But you can just like bind another folder. Let's say, for example, here cluster work. Actually, I forgot what.
But in our document, the HackMD, somebody type hexdoc, the comma would work, it seems.
Oh yeah, comma. Okay.
You could try this first, yes.
So for example, I could use this, and then oh yeah, of course now I rebound it. But now, for example, I can also look into cluster work JD. I forgot to use this. Yeah, and you can combine these as well. You can make a comma separated list and also rebind them. So like give them a different name. So for example, here I could bind this as work or something, and the other one is data. And as you already saw, it does it recursively. Like here in this case, for example, I can see my subfolders, and I can also go into these subfolders. So you only have to bind one folder, and then all the subfolders will be also made available. So yeah, and you can specify as many as you want, but it's at some point it gets like a bit like a long command, and then like I think it's easy to lose overview.
Yeah, no, I think we have covered the intended material. And maybe Dania could take over and mention about the feedback, and maybe we can stop the recording, and maybe then we can have like open mic questions and take things on HackMD.
Yes, can you share that HedgeDoc, Jørn?
Yeah, I can do
maybe
that.
Siri, you can stop the recording as well.